Hello, my name is Travis Newbill. I live and work here at Shambhala Mountain Center, where we're glad to be hosting a weekend program, actually a little bit longer than a weekend, called Embodied Listening. It's coming up on May 22nd, 23rd to the 26th, and it's going to be led by David Rome and Hope Martin. David Rome has practiced Buddhism since 1971. He served as private secretary to Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and was a senior teacher of Shambhala training. He now teaches mindfulness focusing as a certified focusing trainer. And Hope Martin has taught the Alexander Technique for 25 years and trains teachers at the American Center for the Alexander Technique. A certified focusing trainer as well, she operates Hope Martin Studios in New York City. And I'm very glad to have Hope and David joining for some discussion today. David in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Hope in New York. Welcome, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, very much so.
So I wonder if we may start by one or both of you just saying a little something about this work that you're doing that relates to, to the workshop that you're going to be leading at Shambhala Mountain Center.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Hope, do you want to begin?
I could. The embodied listening training is it's actually 3 practices that David and I teach, and that have a lot of overlap, but also have their own integrity and distinction. And those practices are mindfulness, awareness, meditation practice, the Alexander Technique, and focusing, or mindful focusing, which is David's sort of unique slant on that particular practice. And David and I have been collaborating for more than 10 years teaching this workshop. So it's really been in evolution for that long. And it really started because David and his wife Martha started taking lessons with me, and we started taking Alexander lessons with me, and we really met in a very sort of fertile ground, talking about these Western contemplative practices, Alexander and focusing, and how they relate to each other and how they relate to meditation practice. So, David, would you like to say something?
I think you said it really well. Basically, it's these 3 practices which correspond more or less to body, speech, and mind, as is talked about in Buddhism. But they're all awareness practices. And I think they are all about opening a larger space of awareness and allowing the knowing of the body, the wisdom of the body, to emerge and get out of its way, so that wisdom can arise spontaneously and then can flow into one's everyday life.
So is one way of saying getting out of its way to say that maybe we should generally or I wonder, do we tend, and I know this is a broad generalization, to place maybe too much importance on the content of our thinking and not tune in enough or open up enough to listening to what sort of information our body has?
Yes, I think as a broad generalization, that's correct. And in many ways, it's a cultural phenomenon that our culture, Western culture, which is now becoming world culture, as it has developed, has over-specialized in intellect. And we don't want to get rid of intellect, but we need to rebalance and come back to being in touch with the body, both the physical body and the felt body and the emotional body, and being more sensitive to that. And that often involves being willing and able to not keep feeding the intellect or feeding the demands of discursive mind. So, for example, in the work that I do, one exercise is called dropping the storyline. So you have a certain situation, a certain problem or challenge, whatever, and normally we ruminate, we think about it, we go over it in our minds. Should I do this? Should I do that? She said such and such, and we stay caught up in that loop of discursive thought and feeling. What we need to do is drop the storyline and then sense how it all feels in the body in a non-conceptual, non-discursive way.
And once we're sensing it, what do we do with it then? There may be maybe an impulse to want to correct it and make it feel better if it's discomfortable or uncomfortable. What's the next instruction? Once we're tuned in and say we're really tense and feeling crummy, like we might want to drop our shoulders, but beyond that, how can we help it move or process?
Yeah, there's two answers. One from the body point of view and one from the mind point of view. So, but Hope, Travis gave the example of you're holding your shoulders. So why don't you go ahead and address that? What comes next?
Well, it's interesting the way you described it, Travis, because you said, to correct it or make it feel better. And I think, all of the practices of the meditation practice, the Alexander technique, and focusing all work with some quality of suspending the impulse to correct anything, and instead just learn to be with, learn to make contact with, and learn to abide in our experience as it is and how it shows up in the present moment. So I would say that, the idea, to answer your question, is really to learn to not correct it or change it, but make contact with it. Specifically in the work I teach, the Alexander technique, and that's why, Dave, because of what you said about dropping the shoulders, it's the window into that whole world or that approach is how we're holding our body. So developing an awareness of our habitual holding patterns, the tension patterns, the tightness, the shape we take, our posture, how we show up, is actually a study of our responses. And learning to make contact with those responses and to find out about them is a big part of the process. But let me just say another thing about it is there's a lot of emphasis on Alexander on learning to ease up and really let go of the tension and become more expansive and open and present and grounded. And at the same time, the approach is really important, because if we try to approach making change from a pushing sort of way, which is very habitual, then we don't find a fresh experience. So a lot of that training is learning to not push or try to make changes, but to make contact with the experience and then learn to let go.
And from the point of view of the mindful focusing, the pattern is similar. It always starts with awareness. So you notice that you're caught up in a problem, an emotion, a situation in which you don't know what to do. So having noticed that, then you have to be willing just to be with it and to suspend the momentum of your thought process. And you actually drop the awareness down into the body, into the torso. You're kind of metaphorically and in a way literally drop your awareness out of your head, and you notice how it feels in the body, or what your body is feeling like just now. And there's a special quality, and this was discovered by the founder of the focusing work, Eugene Gendlin. There's a special quality called the felt sense. So the felt sense is something that you notice in a bodily way, but it's not just a physical sensation. It is about the situation that you're dealing with. It's how your body is holding that situation. And in that, or underneath that, is the potential for a lot more knowing, a lot more insight, a kind of intuitive insight into what's really at stake for you in the situation. But first you have to be willing to just be with it, to let it be, to let it show up, to let it come into focus, which is why the work is called focusing.
And Hope, you said that what we're experiencing when we can pay attention to our bodily experience is a response to a situation or whatever circumstances. And from an article that the two of you wrote, what you mentioned was the fight or flight response, that we're always, our reaction is fearful, and it's either fight or flight. But in the 21st century, fight or flight, neither of those may solve what we need to solve. And so it seems like we're in like kind of an evolutionary bind or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because we really, we are very reactive generally. And it seems like as there's more demands on us, as the world is changing, we don't really know how to negotiate that. So people's nervous systems are more and more revved up. The Alexander technique is very much kind of nervous system work. It's really about settling the nervous system and living in a much more resilient place in the nervous system. But I would say that's true of all the practices, actually. Meditation practice, indeed, same thing. Coming into a more settled, resilient nervous system that doesn't have to jump at everything. And same thing with the focusing work. So the responses, I mean, all of these practices are kind of a study of the self, and the kinds of shape that we habitually get into. I mean, Alexander technique, as I said, works a lot with, we don't ever use the word posture, but we use the term use, how we use ourselves and what shape that's taking, like our habitual way of holding ourselves. And a lot of that is, we learn that very early on, and we imitate the people in our lives, and we, so sometimes, very often, you see that running through families. I walk the way my mother walked, and she walked the way her father walked, and it just keeps going like that. So Alexander technique is a lot about kind of slowing down those responses so that we can start to notice them. A lot of those responses are very much about our sort of strong sense of identity also. So learning to step out of that can be very liberating. Learning to step out of the tight hold we have on ourselves, the way we're always, overworking through our shoulders or tightening our neck or pulling down or holding ourselves tight, etc.
Mm. And our bodies, as well as responding to what's happening in our environment, maybe hold old trauma or painful things that we've experienced in the past. How does that work?
Absolutely, we do. David, do you want to say something about that?
Those are held in the body. And I would say that all three of the modalities, the mindfulness awareness, the Alexander work, and the mindful focusing, are different avenues for working with old trauma. Sometimes one needs to have a skilled facilitator, a therapist as well, but the skills of being able to just be present and allow something to show up that may indeed be very uncomfortable, and neither run away from it nor collapse into it, become overwhelmed by it. It's sometimes called the window of tolerance, that you're expanding your window of tolerance, what you are able to be with in your own experience. And that means that you have a little distance from whatever it is, but because of that distance, you're able to enter into a new relationship with it. And when that happens, then the trauma itself, which has been blocked, has been stopped, can start to kind of move, wake up, figure out what needs to happen in order for it to release, and for the energy that's been locked there to release and become available for living your life forward.
Mm-hmm. Nicely put. A lot of those responses are very unconscious. The trauma just shows up in the nervous system as you know, as unconscious patterns, and that get tipped off, you know, quite easily. So now I'm hearing an echo. So in the Alexander work, but again, in all practices, they don't really have the same language, but there's a real emphasis on non-doing, or sort of creating a space between impulse and action, where you can sort of rest more and not have to respond so immediately. Or I guess you could say react so immediately. So trauma has that quality of you know, high reactivity. And you know, when you learn to stop doing that, you also get a chance to make contact with your own responses and learn about them. So it's a lot of it is really bringing what's unconscious into conscious awareness.
I wonder if either of you or both of you, I wonder if there's a short exercise or practice that you may offer that people who are watching this may be able to do or apply, you know, in their life. I wonder if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, I could do a little bit about the head-neck relationship in the Alexander technique. And David, is there something that you would like to offer?
Well, we can do a quick version of dropping the storyline.
Great.
But you go ahead.
Okay. So so in the Alexander technique, there's a lot of emphasis on the head-neck relationship as the kind of initiating pattern for both disorganization or contraction pulling in, and also the initiating factor for kind of restoring balance and equilibrium and poise in the system. So Alexander referred to this particular pattern of interference through the head-neck relationship. So if, for our listening audience, if you would just go into a little bit of a slump, just a little bit of a slump, and then notice your head-neck relationship. So especially if you're looking at your computer and it's a desktop and you have to look out, this particular pattern where David's modeling it well, where the neck muscles contract and the weight of the head pulls back, what he called back and down. So this kind of pattern. And when you go into that pattern, notice the quality through your whole system. So notice your breathing and notice your, just how it is, what happens to your shoulders, etc. So Travis, are you doing this right now?
I'm doing it.
Yeah, so what are you noticing about that? Like what is that like for you?
Okay, so my breathing is not as easy,
Uh-huh.
or not as deep or relaxed. And let's see, I generally don't feel as flexible and able to move easily. I feel a little bit stuck. And see, maybe those are the two main. So just a sort of stuckness sort of feeling.
Yeah, because there's a lot of weight, right? A lot of heaviness. So the head is very heavy. It weighs about 12 to 13 pounds, and if it's not poised and balanced at the top of the spine, it produces a lot of heaviness or weight, or as you put it, lack of mobility. Right? So, so I just want to point out that the very top of your spine, like if you put your fingers in your lower ears, and then just imagine your fingers could touch, that's the top of your spine. And the idea here is to stop contracting through the neck muscles. These muscles, there's all the muscles attached to the base of the skull, and when they're tight, they bring the head back and down in this pattern. That is actually known as a startle reflex. You hear a loud noise, and you tend to pull in, right? So the idea is to let those muscles release into length, and to allow the head to balance in this very poised way at the top of the spine. So you could think of the height of the top of your spine, and then ever so slightly just drop your nose and allow your head to be very poised and balanced and movable at the top of your spine, and let your whole body respond to that. So Alexander's words for that were allow my neck to be free, or let my neck release, let my head balance forward and up. The words are a little tricky. You have to know what he meant by that. But the idea is that you just let your head be very weightless, way up there between your ears. And so I don't see an image of you right now, Travis, but what are you sort of getting a little sense of a little more ease in that through the head-neck relationship?
Yeah, well, just for instance, if I move my hips, then my head sort of freely moves also. So there just seems to be more, everything feels more fluid.
Yes, exactly.
Not quite as stuck and more, lighter.
Yeah, and so with that awareness, what I'm going to ask you to do is once again just go back to the other for a moment. Go back to the pattern. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and so just notice that in contrast to where you just were. Again, you can describe it if you want, but just sort of get a, you don't have to, but just get a sense of the whole sense of that, how that pattern actually affects all of you, not just your neck. It affects your emotion, your state of mind, your perception, and your breathing, internal processes as well. And then again, the idea is, again, without pushing, try to just release the contraction by letting your neck let go and your head balance forward. You could just think, let my nose drop a little bit and let my head live in a very light, easy way at the top of my spine. And when you let that happen, notice how your whole system responds, including your state of mind and your perception altogether. So where are you at? Because I'm not seeing you.
I'm right here. The way whoever's making the noise is who shows up on the screen.
Okay.
And so I think ease and expansiveness would describe the experience of this
Yeah.
way of being. I'm trying not to say posture.
Yeah, well, you could say posture. It's fine. That's just normal language. But yeah. But you can see how it's a choice and how you might respond to any given stimulus in your life. right? That you don't actually have to go into that chronic lockdown place.
Mm.
You could let it go and allow more flow and support and uprightness, or as Trooper Rinpoche called it, good head and shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
But he also said, take good head and shoulders and look out. So it has a quality of how you respond to your world, how you are in relationship to whatever you're doing, or whomever you are, relating with.
Yeah, there's something that feels like, this is kind of trying to protect.
Mm-hmm.
But then it kind of doubles back up on you or something.
Yes. So then this particular process gives you the opportunity to both make a relationship and hopefully a friendly, loving relationship with the habitual responses, which often come from a very intelligent place that have to do with protection or, just, somehow protecting ourselves. And then learning to come out of it in a natural way that has everything to do with your system, your structure, your reflexes. They have everything to do. The letting go of that has everything to do with how you're wired as a human being when you're not interfering. So that's the body showing up. Okay.
Thank you. So, David, is there something you'd like to offer also?
Well, we don't want to give away the whole show here, but if we have...
Don't enlighten anybody.
Sorry?
Don't enlighten anybody fully.
So let me do a brief version of dropping the storyline. And if it's all right, Travis, I'll use you as the subject again. But the instructions that I'm giving you, anyone can follow using their own material. So I'm going to start by asking you to think of a situation, a problem, a challenge, maybe something that happened in a relationship situation that doesn't feel good or feels problematic, or a decision that you have to make, or it could be a health issue. It really can be anything. And you're not going to share anything about it. So the story will remain private for you, but we need to have a story to begin with so that then we can work with this idea of dropping the storyline. So take a moment just to kind of come into your body and really feel, again, your posture, or not so much posture, but a sense of presence in your body, being embodied. And there's always a lot of silence in these practices, but I won't leave as much silence on air as we do when we're face to face and we have 3 days together. But let me know when you have a topic, a situation, a story. It has to be something real that's present in your life just now, and perhaps something that has some feelings that come with it.
I've got one.
You've got one? Okay, great. So take another minute or so to just go over the story in your mind the way you might ordinarily think about it, and what happened, or if it's something in the past, or if it's something in the future, what I could try this, but maybe it's better if I try that. Just think about it in the usual way that we think about issues in our life. Just going over it in your mind, maybe evoking some of the feelings that come with that problem or situation or challenge. Just allowing it to be more present in your awareness. And now, wherever you are in that storyline, let go of the storyline. Don't continue the narrative, but just drop the awareness down into the body. So that situation is still present in some way, but you're not thinking about it. You're not going through the details. You're not trying to solve it. You're letting all that go and just sensing into your body, especially between your neck and your bottom, how it all feels in there, just now. And take your time and be gentle, friendly, curious. And if you're not quite sure what you're supposed to be noticing, that's all right, just notice that. And if you are sensing something in particular, notice its location in the body, its texture. Is it hard or soft? Is it large or small? Does it perhaps have movement? And just be with that and invite that, welcome that to be present, however it feels. And as you notice your mind jumping back to the situation, oh, this is about such and such. Again, just like mindfulness practice, just notice that, let it go, and come back to the body sense, the felt sense. So this dropping the storyline and coming into the felt sense is the key move in focusing. And you can just stay there as I talk a bit more. But after we have spent time with that and really let it come into focus, welcoming it, then at some point, and it's important not to rush, we can enter into a kind of dialogue with it. And so if the quality that you're feeling is a quality of, let's say, sticky in my solar plexus, this is just an example that I'm making up. But once that's present, then you can enter into a process of inquiry. So what about all this makes it so sticky? Or you could ask, what's the worst part of this situation? And in this inquiry process, the key is not to jump back into your head, but to kind of ask the question and then just let it hang out and see if something sparks from the body. And when that happens, it can come as a shift in the felt sense, or it can come as an intuitive insight, as some real fresh understanding about the situation. But I want to emphasize that it takes a lot of patience and gentleness, and it can't be rushed. But we've done the key step, which is dropping the whole conceptual structure and just seeing how it's presenting in the body.
Thank you. I can definitely see how giving the practice more room and space would be helpful.
Okay, good. And you can do more on your own. And when we're really in touch with this level, which tends to be a level that we don't notice normally, this level of felt sense, it's a kind of subtle area, subtle zone of feeling. When we're really in touch with that, then the knowing of the body, which tends to be very different from the knowing of the mind or the intellect, starts to show up. And then, and then we can begin to articulate this new knowing. So then eventually it comes back into the discursive mind in the sense that, oh, okay, now I can say what's really going on here. Or now I see this new aspect of the situation that I just wasn't able to see at all before. So there you have it.
Thank you very much. It's almost like a leap to open up to the intelligence of the body, where I know that I feel like I've been conditioned to believe that all the intelligence is here.
That's right.
Travis, I think you're the only one.
Yeah. And well, that's why I'm looking forward to bringing it back around here, to participate in this weekend with the two of you. Embodied Listen, May 23rd, 26th here. Said a lot about what's been going on. I wonder if there's anything else you'd like to add on about the weekend.
I don't know how you're hearing me, but it seems like there's a lot of echoing.
There is. There's a lot of echo coming from somewhere on your end. I'm not sure.
Really? Well, yeah. I mean, in the weekend we'll be doing meditation practice. I will be doing hands-on work with all the participants, both while they're meditating, but also in my Alexander classes. I'll be teaching a lying down called constructive rest that helps one find a more neutral place in oneself. I guess what I wanted to say is that the habitual patterns are not. Can you hear me okay?
There's a lot of echo. I wonder if there's other speakers on the line.
Is there something like about that? I don't know. At any rate, there'll be a lot of hands-on work and a lot of learning to relate with habitual responses and learning how to come out of them into more ease. And then David will be presenting his wonderful mindfulness work, which you got a little taste of just now. You want to say anything?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I think we've said a lot. I'll just add that I am coming out with a book from Shambhala Publications in October for those people who may not be able to make it to Shambhala Mountain Center. And the book is called Your Body Knows the Answer. That also is a way of summing up what the mindful focusing work is about. Your body knows the answer. But I very much look forward to being at Shambhala Mountain Center. That was the reason that I went out to Colorado the first time in 1972. I was there for the first two teaching programs that Trungpa Rinpoche did there when it was populated by hippies. Hippies in A-frames and yurts. and I always love being there, so I really look forward to being there soon.
Great. Well, I live in one of those yurts now, and so do all of my friends, and we'll be so excited to host the two of you and everyone that's listening to me attending this program. It's sure to be awesome. So thanks again to the both of you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For generously leading us in those exercises. And thanks to everybody that's tuned in. And we'll be in touch with all of you again soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.